on, chat, man? We are back, and today we are reacting to how the shortest NBA player ever destroyed everyone, man.
Muggsy Bogues is the shortest NBA player in history. Coming in at only 5'3", he completely disappears between his giant peers. But this never prevented him from becoming a basketball legend. From blocking 7-foot Patrick Ewing to locking up Michael Jordan, Muggsy destroyed everyone on the court despite his height. But he didn't become a fan favorite without any setbacks. Coaches bullied him, racism followed him everywhere, and his life was an absolute roller coaster, which all started when he was born on January 9th, 1965. His mother, Elaine Bogues, who had suffered through 2 failed pregnancies, would finally give birth to their miracle child, Tyrone Curtis Bogues. The Bogues family grew up in the Lafayette housing projects, located in the inner city of Baltimore, Maryland, where the life expectancy was a shocking 20 years old. This meant that Tyrone's early life was surrounded by drugs and violence, and this nearly ended up costing him his life when he was just 5 years old. Tyrone and his sister, Sharon, were hanging out at his home one night when they heard a commotion outside, and being curious children, the pair ran downstairs to see a violent fight occurring outside their apartment building, which for 2 inner-city Baltimore kids was not unusual to see. But what happened shortly after their arrival was shocking, because one of the individuals involved decided to throw a rock into the fight. But this rock ended up smashing a window of a local shop owner, who after hearing his window smash, angrily ran outside with a loaded shotgun, ready to punish whoever had damaged his property. By the time the shop owner was outside, the only 2 people left on the scene were the Bogues siblings. So the shop owner assumed it was them who broke his window and opened fire on the 5-year-old Tyrone, and his shots connected. The miracle child was rushed to hospital in hopes of saving his young life. Tyrone arrived in hospital fearful of losing his life, but after emergency surgery, Bogues would live to tell the tale, as thankfully he wasn't hit with the shotgun shell, just the buckshots, and they crucially missed his vital organs. In order to escape the horrible conditions that surrounded them, the Bogues family was heavily involved in sports, with Tyrone receiving his first ever basketball at 3 years old, and the young Bogues would spend hours and hours practicing his ball handling skills at every opportunity he got. However, due to his father, Richard, only being 5'5" and his mother, Elaine, being 4'11", Tyrone was very short, which often led to him being excluded or criticized when he tried to play basketball. He would look to his mother for guidance, which she often provided for the young Tyrone.
Don't let them, take your joy. If you like playing
I hate bullies, bro. I ain't gonna
basketball,
lie.
you go out there and play.
I hate
no one
bullies.
An expert in your life. They don't know how big your heart or know what your capabilities are. If you want to play, you just go out there and play.
But ultimately, it was his horrific near-death experience that shaped Tyrone's view of the world for the rest of his life, with Bogues sharing,
But after I got shot, I remember going back down there and hearing those same criticisms about myself, but it didn't have the same impact. So I think that has something to do with it, what I thought and what I believe.
Tyrone's self-belief and tenacious defense caused other players to start saying, "This guy's mugging you," to the taller players on the court. And this, coupled with a television show called The Bowery Boys, in which the main character, who is a short, aggressive leader, Muggsy, resulted in Tyrone earning the nickname Muggsy, which stuck with him for the rest of his life. But not everything was sunshine and rainbows on these courts, as Baltimore's inner city was becoming a hub for drugs and violence. And this impacted Muggsy's life in a very tragic way. Richard Bogues, Muggsy's father, was a dock worker throughout his childhood, but he, like many other men in Baltimore, lost his job and had to resort to selling drugs and committing robberies to feed his family. This would result in Richard being jailed when Bogues was just 12 years old. But Muggsy knew his father was simply trying to provide for his family, as he remained in contact with him for years to come and vowed to eventually get him out of prison. And thanks to Muggsy's developing basketball skill, he was accepted into Dunbar High School to play alongside his best friends, Reggie Williams, Reggie Lewis, and David Wingate, under their head coach, Bob Wade. Bob was tough on the friends. He wanted to ensure that practice was incredibly difficult, making the players do defensive drills whilst holding up bricks to ensure that when they played games, they would be easy. And this paid off, because in Muggsy's eyes,
adversity always prepares you. You have to go through those things in order to see the light at the light at the end of the tunnel.
Coach Bob believed in Muggsy and never saw him for his weaknesses. Instead, he saw Muggsy for who he truly was. An incredibly athletic and fantastic leader, someone who could guide any team to incredible heights.
I gained the respect of the guys because they knew and they felt like I was a true leader. You know, I was leading us in the right direction. I was an extension of the coach.
And not only this,
So Muggsy, hey, bro, he got the confidence, bro. He be doing it.
Muggsy's leadership came from within because he understood how to turn what his perceived weaknesses were into strengths.
You know, you look at whatever your weakness is, you got to try to turn it to a strength.
Dunbar would become the best high school team in the history of basketball, going 60-0 in the 2 years Muggsy was at Dunbar, winning 2 state championships, and Muggsy would also win MVP over his teammate and best friend Reggie Williams, despite Williams being 6'7". All 3 of Muggsy's friends were off to play Division I college basketball, and Bogues was ready to do the same. However, Muggsy was still overlooked due to his height, standing at 5 foot.
Always talked about his height, bro.
But 3, many saw him as a liability, and Bogues had very little interest from Division I schools, despite not losing a single game for 2 years straight as the team's starting point guard. Therefore, Muggsy would have to prove himself once again. Bob Wade, thanks to Dunbar's success, was invited to coach at the prestigious 5-star basketball camp, and Coach Wade decided to invite Muggsy along with him, giving Bogues the opportunity to gain the Division I scholarship that he deserved. But many didn't believe he would be able to compete at the college level, with Muggsy sharing,
Coming from the inner city, you know, still 5'3", still being questioned. Okay, he made it on the junior high school level, in elementary, he made it in high school. But now he's facing some bigger, stronger, tougher players that's almost close to men, that how he's going to compete with these guys.
However, Muggsy would perform exceptionally at the 5-star camp and was offered a full Division I scholarship to attend a liberal arts school in North Carolina, Wake Forest. Bogues would accept this offer to play in what many consider to be the toughest conference in America, the
Wait, he played Jordan in college?
Atlantic Coast Conference for the Demon Deacons, under their head coach Carl Tacey. Muggsy arrived at Wake Forest in 1983, ready to continue proving himself and fulfill his ultimate dream of playing in the NBA and becoming the shortest player ever to achieve this feat. But Muggsy ran into some issues that caused him to want to leave Wake Forest. Towards the end of the school year, Muggsy was incredibly busy with his basketball duties, with Wake Forest advancing all the way to the Elite 8 in the NCAA March Madness tournament, before being eliminated by then Akeem Olajuwon. Because of this, Bogues informed his professor that he would be unable to complete a test, and his kind professor, understanding of his situation, offered him a chance to come and sit the test, and if he couldn't perform it, he would be given another chance with a new test at a later date. Bogues was unable to complete the test initially, so he handed it in empty and blank, opting to resit it at a later date, and this was allowed by his professor. However, many thought that this was unfair treatment and that Muggsy was cheating, which resulted in another professor raising this issue with school officials, and Wake Forest
they're hating on him straight up then, bro.
threatened to kick Bogues out for apparently cheating on this test. This left him feeling alienated. Did Wake Forest actually want me? Does the school really believe I'm cheating? Or is it something to do with the way I look? Muggsy had decided that he wanted to leave Wake Forest. So, like many times before, he consulted with his mother, Elaine, who urged him to stay at Wake Forest and rise above all the people who were trying to pull him down. Muggsy knew she was right, so he opted to stay at Wake Forest for the next 3 years. And during his second college season, Muggsy was the starting point guard for the Demon Deacons. He began showcasing his incredible leadership and defensive abilities, averaging 7.5 assists and an insane 3 steals a game, while scoring 6.6 points over the 1984-1985 season. Despite Wake Forest making it all the way to the Elite 8 in the previous year in 1984, the Deacons were eliminated by a young rising star who played for North Carolina, Michael Jordan, in the first round of the ACC tournament. This loss drove Muggsy to work hard on his game throughout the offseason, which would pay off during his 3rd year at Wake Forest. Bogues would increase his scoring average to 11.3 points
he's just driving in and getting straight to the basket too
per game, his assists to 8.1, and continued his incredible defensive prowess, getting 3 steals a game. Bogues' dominant play caught the eyes of the United States national team, who were preparing for the FIBA World Cup, which which was to be held in Spain during the offseason in July. Muggsy was invited to attend the training camp in June to compete for a spot on the 12-man international roster. So, Muggsy shows up at Arizona University, ready to compete for a spot, which is exactly what he did. Muggsy was named to the 12-man international roster, which was composed of current household names: Steve Kerr, Brian Shaw, David Robinson, and Kenny the Jet Smith. Once July came around, the group would head off to Spain to compete for a gold medal. The United States would face off against Yugoslavia in pool play, with Muggsy being tasked with guarding their elite shooting guard, Drazen Petrovic.
That's crazy.
Someone who Michael Jordan respected, and a player that had been lighting up the whole tournament, averaging an insane 27 points per game. Bogues would show off his elite defensive ability, holding Drazen to 12 points. And this continued all the way until the gold medal game against the Soviet Union. The US had a comfortable 83 to 77 point lead with 2 minutes remaining, and it seemed likely they would leave Spain with gold medals draped around their necks. This was until the Soviets came crawling back, scoring basket after basket and only being down 2 with 14 seconds remaining. But for some reason, it took them 10 crucial seconds to foul a United States player to put them on the free throw line and get another chance at tying or taking the lead. With 4 seconds remaining and up 2 points, it was United States ball at halfway. And after a timeout, head coach Lute Olson subbed Muggsy back in, showing how important he was for the team with his ability to handle pressure and succeed in big moments. However, the US would turn the ball over in the Soviets' backcourt, and they would heave the ball down court in an effort to tie or win the game. They were able to get a shot off, echoing that of Christian Laettner's game winner in 1992, but it missed. Muggsy and his team left Spain as world champions. And not only did Bogues leave with a medal, he left a huge impression on the basketball.
Bro, that's crazy, bro. Like, that's aura. I knew he felt like he was on top of the world at this moment right here.
World, showcasing that his height or size had little impact on his on-court success. Scouts were left impressed with his play against not only professional athletes, but grown men. This success continued for Muggsy in his final year at Wake Forest, going from averaging a single point in his freshman year to 14 points a game in his senior season, leading his conference in assists and steals. But unfortunately for Muggsy, his team would still continue to struggle, being eliminated by NC State in the second round of the ACC tournament, ending Muggsy's career at Wake Forest. Coach Dean Smith of North Carolina famously shared, "If you don't see Muggsy, pick the ball up," during Bogues' final season, highlighting just how hard it was to protect the ball against the defensive-minded Muggsy Bogues. And after their loss to NC State, Muggsy decided to enter the 1987 NBA draft. And with the 12th pick,
the Washington Bullets select Tyrone Bogues.
Okay! Bro, he got picked first round too, bro. Because, you know, Isaiah Thomas was second round, I think the last pick, bro. So he's in a first round.
Bob, that's what I was talking about, obscure. Now they've got the tallest and the shortest.
Muggsy became the shortest player ever at 5'3" to be drafted into the NBA. Bogues was ecstatic to have finally achieved his dream of becoming an NBA player. But it was clear there was a deeper reason to the Bullets choosing him at 12. Muggsy decided to sign with an agent, David Falk, who was also Michael Jordan's agent, to help him negotiate his rookie contract. Falk had Muggsy play in the United States Basketball League for the Rhode Island Gulls in between the draft and the beginning of the 1987 NBA season to help Muggsy earn some extra money. Bogues would also sign an endorsement deal with Ford, unsurprisingly advertising their smallest car. And whilst it's very common for NBA players to sign endorsement deals, Muggsy had a clear motivation with all the money he was making: to get his father out of jail. So, 12 years after his father Richard was jailed, Muggsy hired an attorney, and his father was released 8 years early from his 20-year sentence. And with his rookie contract being complete, Muggsy was ready to prove himself at the highest level of the game. But many felt that Muggsy was drafted as a sideshow, a gimmick in which the Bullets used him and 7'7" Manute Bol's height difference to sell tickets, with reporters saying that Bogues looked like an Ewok, and the way Muggsy was treated on the court was similar to the way he was being treated off of it. Muggsy would average 20 minutes per game, 5 assists, 1.6 steals, and 5 points for the Bullets that season, making it clear their head coach, Wes Unseld, a former Washington standout player, did not believe in Muggsy. You clearly saw this during their playoff series against the bad boy Detroit Pistons. Bogues only appeared in a single game for 2 minutes.
That's an L coach right there, Chad. I'm gonna be honest, bro. Don't draft him, didn't have no confidence in the dude.
But all hope was not lost for Bogues. Muggsy didn't expect to play huge minutes and be a heavy contributor in his first season. And thankfully for him, the Washington Bullets had promised Bogues that they were going to protect him in the upcoming 1988 NBA expansion draft, and that they would give him a much larger role in the 1988-1989 season. But just a week later, the Charlotte Hornets, one of the 4 new expansion teams entering the NBA, shockingly selected Muggsy with their 3rd pick. Washington had lied straight to Muggsy's face, but Bogues wasn't upset about this. He was excited to play alongside a longtime friend from college, Del Curry, and he was going to get a fresh start with a team that actually wanted him for who he was, not just someone to make fun of and sell tickets, or so he thought. Dick Harter, yes, I said that slow on purpose, was named the first ever head coach of the Charlotte Hornets. And Dick, alongside the Hornets management team, laid out a plan to make the playoffs by their 5th season in the league. Charlotte fans sold out the whole season before it had even begun, and fans showed up dressed in full suits and beautiful dresses for the Hornets.
I ain't gonna lie, the Charlotte Hornets are actually playing good right now too, Chad.
Hornets' first ever game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Muggsy, alongside the other 11 players chosen by the Hornets, were ready to prove to the world and the NBA that they were more than just an expansion team. But they lost by 40. However, the fans stayed, giving the team a full standing ovation, a huge positive sign for things to come. However, while the team would win their first game a few days later, Muggsy was again struggling with similar issues he had faced his whole life, with their head coach, Dick Harter, openly not believing in Muggsy. Harter would get onto his knees and mock Bogues' height to the media after games, saying things like, "Will a midget really bother Ewing? Or try shooting over a building?"
That's a freaking coach. You're his coach saying this, bro. That's an L coach, bro.
When you're 5'3", Harter's inability to see past Muggsy's height would have a huge impact on not only Bogues' minutes, but also his confidence, with Muggsy feeling like he truly didn't belong in the NBA, and that maybe his height would be the reason he would never succeed. However, this wasn't the first time Muggsy had faced adversity. In fact, he had faced much worse, so he continued to remain focused on improving his game day in and day out. The Hornets owner, George Shinn, really believed in Muggsy. After a poor 20-win, 62-loss first season and an 8-win, 32-loss start to their 1989-1990 season, Dick Harter was fired. Assistant coach Gene Littles was promoted to become the head coach for the remainder of the 1990 season, and alongside his promotion, Muggsy would finally get his opportunity to show the NBA how great he was, and he did just that, averaging an insane 10.5 assists, 2 steals, and 9.4
He was a passer.
points per game, nearly doubling his statistics from his first year with Charlotte. But despite Muggsy's individual success, the team still struggled, having an even worse record than the year before, winning 19 and losing 63. But something in the Hornets management team changed during the 1990 offseason, with Alan Bristow, a former NBA player and assistant coach with the Denver Nuggets, becoming the Hornets general manager. Alan was a huge fan of Muggsy's game and was trying to get the Nuggets to trade for Muggsy during his first 2 years in the NBA. Bristow was known for building fast-paced, high-scoring teams in Denver, and Bogues was excited to begin playing for a general manager who believed in not only himself, but the style of play that suited his game best. However, Coach Gene Littles would impact Muggsy in a negative way, as Charlotte spent the whole season trying to figure out which lineup would work best, meaning Bogues was constantly in and out of the rotation. Muggsy would only start 46 games in the 1990-1991 season, and whilst the Hornets did improve their record ever so slightly to 26 wins, they were ultimately still out of the playoff race. But something huge would happen that offseason, something that would change Muggsy's career for the best, because thanks to the Hornets' terrible record, they secured the #1 pick in the 1991 NBA draft. And
with the first pick in the 1991 NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Larry Johnson from University of Nevada.
Chat, I know Larry Johnson's a dog. I know. I've been seeing his highlights, you know, in the 90s mixtapes and all that, man. I gotta react to him, though.
Las Vegas.
Let me know if y'all want to see that.
Yet, the positive news wasn't over, because shortly after the draft, on July 24th, 1991, Alan Bristow, Muggsy's biggest believer within the Hornets, was named head coach and planned to bring an even more up-tempo offense with Muggsy leading the team. Bogues was also becoming closer and closer with his teammate and former college friend, Del Curry, with the pair both being in very similar situations. They both had young children, and living a few doors down from each other in the same apartment building, their relationship flourished. Dell's young son, Stefan, looked up to Muggsy Bogues, and the pair would form a lifelong relationship. Muggsy never realized Steph would become who he is today. He remembers
Giving him a little airplane ride. And he's 4 years old, and all of a sudden now he out there shooting the lights out, man. It's surreal. You know, Steph, as a kid, he wished he, you know, he was just dreaming to get the 5'3" because he felt like if I get the 5'3", I could play in the NBA.
Not only did Dell and Muggsy's relationship flourish, Charlotte continued to improve all season long, finishing with their best record ever, 31 wins and
Steph Curry looking up to you is aura, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
51 losses, edging closer and closer to their goal of being a playoff team in their 5th season. Things were continuing to trend in the right direction because they ran into some insane luck that offseason. Despite not being the second worst team in the NBA during the 1991-1992 season, the Hornets were able to get the second pick in the 1992 NBA draft, which they would use to select Alonzo Mourning. And it set the stage for the Hornets to finally make the playoffs in their 5th ever NBA season. The Hornets finished with an incredible 44 win and 38 loss season, which made them the 5th seed, and they were set to face off against the Boston Celtics, who were captained by one of Bogues' oldest friends, Reggie Lewis, in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. However, something devastating would happen during Game 1 of this series. Boston was bringing the ball up the court on offense, and Reggie Lewis, without any contact, suddenly collapsed to the ground. He would eventually stand back up, but would not re-enter the game, and headed to the hospital later that night, only to reveal everyone's worst nightmare.
Here's the way it all worked out. Friday morning, Reggie Lewis checked into New England Baptist Hospital. A team of 12 of the most respected cardiologists in Boston began tests on the Celtics captain. Those tests revealed a very serious heart condition.
Something was seriously wrong with Muggsy's best friend, and everyone knew it. But there was still a job to be done. With the Celtics winning Game 1, Charlotte had to win Game 2 to give themselves a chance of winning the series and claiming the franchise's first ever playoff victory. The Hornets were up 99-98 in double overtime. With 2 seconds remaining, Boston had the ball and had drawn up a sideline out of bounds play to win them Game 2, just one win away from eliminating the Hornets. D. Brown got wide open for a game-winning 3 on the Celtics out-of-bounds play.
Brown again for 3, and that will wrap it.
Charlotte had done the impossible. In just 5 seasons, the team had gone from losing by 40 in their opening game to not only making the playoffs, but getting their first ever playoff victory against one of the most historical franchises in the whole sporting world. But again, Muggsy knew the job wasn't finished.
We can't just relax and think that the fans going to win this game for us. We know Boston going to come out very aggressive and try.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie, this makes me look at Muggsy Bogues like way differently, bro. He's actually a dog, dude.
To get their low post game going early, and we just got to come up and be ready for the task.
The Hornets won Game 3 with ease, and it all came down to one final moment in Game 4, because just like Game 2, the Celtics were down 1 and had 0.4 seconds left on the clock to take the lead and force a series-deciding Game 5 back in Boston. Yes, first-round series used to only be 5 games, and the Celtics ran the perfect game-winning play, setting a back screen for D. Brown, the player who missed the game-winning 3 in Game 2, and the Hornets completely stuffed up the switch, leaving him wide open to dunk it home and tie the series 2-all.
Oh my God. Bro, that guy keeps missing buzzer beaters.
The Hornets move on to the Eastern Conference semifinals, and the Celtics season will end.
The Hornets were set to play the New York Knicks, led by the formidable Patrick Ewing, for their chance to make it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. And it all came down to a decisive Game 4, because the Knicks held a 2-1 lead until Larry Johnson hit this beautiful turnaround jump shot to tie the score at 92. With 28 seconds remaining, the Knicks called a timeout, and the Hornets' championship hopes were hanging on by a thread. After the timeout, the Knicks would look to get a post touch for their superstar Ewing, but this was made impossible by the Hornets defense. So Hubert Davis attacked the free throw line looking for a pull-up jump shot, which was taken away by another lifelong friend of Muggsy, David Wingate, only for Rolando Blackman to expertly move behind Davis for the open jump shot, which he nailed, putting the Knicks up 2. Muggsy would call timeout, and the Hornets needed a 3 to tie the series at 2 games each. Bogues caught the ball on the inbounds play, only to unfortunately lose the ball, and the game was over. The Knicks headed back home to the Mecca, Madison Square Garden, with a commanding 3-1 lead, and their control of the series remained throughout Game 5. New York never allowed the Hornets to lead the game, eliminating their championship hopes in Game 5. And things didn't get any better after this loss, because shortly after, on July 29th, 1993, something truly shocking happened. Reggie Lewis was getting in some off-season work in a gym by himself, cleared by doctors to be playing basketball, but Reggie would collapse again, except this time it was fatal. Muggsy had lost one of his lifelong friends, and just a week later, something even more tragic happened. Richard Bogues, Muggsy's father, tragically passed away as well. However, Muggsy remained focused on basketball, using it as an escape from all the traumatic things occurring in his personal life. And the 1994-1995 season was one of Muggsy's greatest, with the 5'3" point guard averaging a double-double, 10.8 points and 10.1 assists per game. But unfortunately for the Hornets, they missed the playoffs by a single game, finishing 9th in the Eastern Conference. But what Muggsy had done that season was nothing short of incredible. For a 5'3" player to average a double-double in the NBA, where every single person is at least 9 inches taller than you, is an incredible feat that no one will ever be able to achieve again. Fueled by just missing the playoffs in the 93-94 season, the Hornets went out and won 50 games in the 94-95 season and had incredibly high hopes for winning a championship throughout the year, until 2 simple words derailed their championship dreams.
I'm back. That's all Jordan said on Saturday. That was really all Jordan needed to say as his 17-month retirement came to an end.
The Charlotte Hornets were set to face the returning Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs, and it all came down to a deciding Game 4. With the Bulls up 2-1, the Hornets had to win Game 4 in Chicago to have a chance at winning the series back home in Charlotte. But the Bulls and their championship DNA was just too much for the Hornets.
Was Muggsy Bogues ever an all-star? Can you guys let me know down below?
Does not count. The Bulls move on to round 2.
And they lost Game 4, eliminating them from the playoffs once again. This is where things started to go horribly wrong for Muggsy Bogues, because he had to sit out most of the 95-96 season with a knee injury, which was so bad the team doctor recommended to Muggsy that he retired, and many fans felt the same way. But as usual, it was never great times that motivated Muggsy. It was always adversity that drove him to success. Since the Hornets were missing Muggsy all season, they once again missed the playoffs, and Charlotte's front office decided to go in a different direction. They hired Bob Bass as the team's new general manager before the 95-96 season. Bob's first big move as general manager was Alan Bristow, forcing him to step down as the Hornets head coach, and David Cohen's, a Celtics Hall of Famer, becoming the Hornets head coach for the 96-97 season. Bogues continued his rehab and was made available to play during the 96-97 season, and started all 65 games he was available for, averaging 8 points, 7.2 assists, and 1.3 steals a game for the Hornets, who once again, after having a record-setting 54-win season, was set to face the New York Knicks, this time in the first round of the NBA playoffs. New York, just like the last time they faced off against the Hornets, easily disposed of Charlotte, sweeping them in 3 games. New head coach David Cohen's, much like many of Bogues' coaches throughout his life, didn't believe in him at all, suggesting
not believing in the guy, bro. That's just hating, bro.
He should retire, and that no no other team in the league would want him except Charlotte. This tension continued into the preseason.
So right after we lose in the playoffs to New York, come back to practice that following year. They didn't let me practice, so I had to file for a grievance, and then they let me come to practice. Now, while I'm in practice, they leaving me off for all the teams, the first team, the second team, even the third team.
That's so lame. Why would you treat someone like this because of their height, bro? Like, actually, they didn't do anything bad.
I mean, really? This is how y'all gonna treat me? This is how y'all treat me now? After I just came off of one leg playing with you guys, you begged me to come back and play, and y'all gonna treat me like this?
And then something incredibly shocking happened.
We played against New York, a preseason game in our arena, which in our arena, everybody used to see me as a starter, playing all these minutes and so forth. Here it is, I'm on the bench. I didn't get in, 1 minute of the game. Here it is, we down by 25 to New York. The crowd was going crazy. We want Muggsy, we want Muggsy. So that just got under Dave Cowlin's skin, and he felt like he didn't want to go on the rest of the season under those conditions.
Because of this, Muggsy was traded to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for former Chicago Bulls guard B.J. Armstrong. Bogues was devastated.
I was promised that I was going to retire as a Hornet.
Muggsy left the Charlotte Hornets as their all-time leader in assists and steals, something that he still holds to this day. The situation in Golden State wasn't much better either. During the 97 season and at practice, Warriors All-Star Latrell Sprewell violently attacked and choked out head coach PJ Carlesimo. This led to Muggsy never feeling truly accepted by Golden State due to the dramatic situation, because at this stage in his career, Bogues wanted to be a veteran leader, someone who could help and guide younger players, not someone who was breaking up fights. So during the 1999 offseason, Muggsy, a free agent for the first time in his career, decided to sign to the same team as his best friend, Del Curry, a team that had two incredibly talented, young athletic wing players in Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter, the Toronto Raptors. Muggsy was in a perfect situation. The team didn't need him physically to win games. They just needed his veteran presence and leadership skills, which is something he did with a young Alonzo Mourning in Charlotte.
I remember him basically taking me under his wing and just telling me, like, young fella, all I want you to do is run. Don't let me beat you down the court. You know, and he was serious. He said, I'll find you. Just run.
And his veteran leadership, combined with great on-court play for his age and health, led to Muggsy signing a 4-year extension to his NBA contract. Bogues was ready to have his career end gracefully, doing what he loved the most, giving
I ain't gonna lie, Muggsy Bogues being on the Raptors is fire, man.
But this never came true, because something terrible was happening in Muggsy Bogues' personal life. As with 3 years remaining on his contract, Muggsy made a decision that shocked the whole NBA. He retired. Many pondered why, but it was because the person closest to him, his mother, was suffering.
And the reason I retired was mainly because my mom. You know, my mom was battling cancer at the time. For me, she meant everything. She meant everything for me. And I just didn't want to go out there and play no more. You know, once she...
I respect that. I respect
once she
that.
no longer was part of this, I didn't want to be part of it no more. So I felt like she saw my last game and there wasn't no need to me go play no more.
And while many discount how great Muggsy truly was, his longtime Charlotte teammate Rex Chapman sums it up so perfectly.
Muggs was a 5'3" Jason Kidd.
Wow.
He really was. He could get anywhere. He's so fast, faster with the ball probably than without it.
Throughout Muggsy's career, other than winning a championship, Bogues really only had one main goal.
Hopefully I can encourage some kid to be the best they can be. You know, as a kid, you know, that's what I had to go through. You know, that's what I did. But keeping that positive message in my head, knowing that I can, and knowing that, you know, no matter what anybody else doing, I believe. And that's what I want every kid to understand, how to feel good about themselves. When you look in that mirror and you look at that reflection back, not like yourself, love yourself.
Muggsy was a true inspiration for small guards all around the world, including superstar Trae Young, who just like Muggsy is misunderstood for the way he looks. Find out more by watching this.
Wow, bro. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, bro. I learned a lot during this video, man. Respect to Muggsy Bogues, bro. Like, everyone was just hating on him, and, you know, he proved them all wrong, man. But what, Chad? This is the end of the video, man. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe. And if you guys are new to my channel, enjoy this type of content, man, hit that subscribe button, man. Join the crew. But hey, I'll catch y'all next time, man. Yes, sir.